With the difficult economy, our city is working diligently to find revenues to help cover the rising costs of providing city services. In Oklahoma, city government's primary source of revenues is sales tax receipts. In this city report, we explore tax incentives or rebates offered to lure new business to our area. We spoke with two concerned citizens about this process.
Good thing, I think, because it promotes growth. That's the biggest thing. We're furloughing employees, city employees. We're having to cut back on city budgets. I'm on the phone with the city manager, and he can't give raises ever, taking pay cuts. So to me, it's a good idea because it's going to increase retail growth, retail establishment, going to bring more business in. You will maybe lose some business from competing industries, but studies show that it actually does increase your sales tax revenues. If you increase sales tax revenues, we can do things like put more police on the streets, have more firefighters. We've had so many fires lately. We could do more city improvement projects. So bottom line, we can just bring more business in, create more sales tax revenues. That's not a bad thing for the city. I can't see how it would be.
Sales tax incentives and sales tax rebates are not exactly the same thing. Your incentives are more for your larger companies like manufacturing, industrial, warehouse, technology type jobs that bring in a lot of jobs and high paying salaries to the area. Incentives are justified for these types of businesses. The incentives would be beneficial if a company were willing to come in an area and renovate or rejuvenate a particular area. There are different types of companies and different ways of generating income. Some companies that come in will bring other companies and jobs with them in addition to the company itself. And those types of companies that have been known to bring in additional businesses after they locate in an area should be considered for incentives. Whereas your retail businesses would be ones who generate sales tax rebates through their sales and the sales tax that they collect.
Clarifying for this show, there's a difference between tax incentives and tax rebates. A tax rebate can be offered to businesses that create retail sales. Those sales are taxed by the city, and anyone who shops within Shawnee city limits pays this in the normal form of sales tax. A tax incentive is usually reserved for an expansion or relocation of an existing business or a new business that moves into our area, creates good-paying jobs, and may also lure other peripheral businesses to locate here.
An incentive is usually in the form of a grant or loan that is not based on sales tax generated by the company itself. The sales tax base is used to fund those initiatives, but in the case of a grant, the company does not have to pay those back. It is, in that case, the company is generating enough benefit for the local community in the form of additional businesses and occupations and jobs and homes that are built by the employees that they bring in, that benefit compensates for what they receive through that incentive. That can be used for infrastructure, such as water and sewer lines for that company, or it can be used for equipment or anything else that the criteria that is laid out by the city for those incentives that the company might need. The sales rebate would be more for retail businesses who, through their sales, their local sales, they'll generate a lot of sales tax to the city, and then that sales tax would be rebated back to them. There should be a limit, though, either a percentage or a dollar amount specified that the city would pay in a grant or a loan or a sales tax rebate over a specified period of time. And all of these specifics should be spelled out in a plan, I guess you could call this a funding plan that the city would lay out.
We're in the 21st century now, and business doesn't operate the same way that it did even 10 years ago, much less 20 or 30. Whereas before we could just kind of sit back and let people come to us, cities are having to go get retail. A lot of municipalities will offer sales tax rebates for, and by rebate I mean they will reimburse a business a portion of the sales tax dollars that the city collects. We collect 3% on every sales transaction in the city. So instead of us keeping that 3%, we work out some agreement and say 5 years, 50% on your sales tax revenues, and then you're cut off. That's what a sales tax rebate is, commonly used to promote growth in a community.
As you can tell, both Mr. Prince and Mrs. Agee are well-educated citizens. They both seem to agree that incentives and/or rebates should be offered by our city to bring new business and new revenues to our government. Concerns were raised as well, such as what guidelines are we going to follow when these incentives are offered? And should there be a process for public input in the form of a committee or an open public forum that individuals can come to and share their concerns when these incentives are to be offered? These are concerns we asked our mayor, Linda Peterson, to answer for us.
We do have guidelines in place, and this is not anything new for us talking with businesses about assisting them in the expansion or the development of a new business. Traditionally, we have done what this show is calling incentives, and that would be cash out up front, helping them with the water line, helping them with the road. Those are the two things that we have done traditionally when a business has come to us and asked for that. We have guidelines for that, and we have used them, and we are using the very same guidelines for sales tax rebates. The only difference is, instead of writing a check in the beginning, what we're doing is deferring the future income. We will be receiving future income from this business being here, but we're deferring that so that they have additional funds to help them set up their business here. We have success stories here in town, new businesses, expansion of businesses that we have participated with them for either that development or that expansion. And so we would use the very same guidelines. We're not going to change in the middle of the game here. And the other thing is that these guidelines and these decisions have been made in public. It's a very public forum. The decisions have to be made at a city commission meeting with us there with the majority agreeing to that. We have a contract with these companies with a clawback that says if they don't perform, if they don't bring in the numbers of employees that they said they were going to bring in, or they don't develop to the level of sales that they said they were going to do, then different things happen. Maybe the contract stops then. Maybe they pay us back. But there's a clawback that says every party has to perform to the level that we agreed to when we signed the contract. So we have that. We have a public process in place, and we really want to hear from everybody. This is our city, and all of us have an input on the development of our city and what we want it to be in the future. And that's what we're talking about, is developing our city for the future. What do we want it to look like? Who do we want to be there? And how do we invest our dollars right now so that in the future it is what we want it to be? It's a very competitive market out there, and cities have to be competitive just like businesses do. And Shawnee is trying to be competitive with what we can do. And so when we hear the citizens talk to us about what they would like to see and what businesses they would like to have and what their level, what their threshold of pain is for some of these deferred revenues. That's what we want to hear about so that we can make a collective decision that represents all of us.